What's up, everybody? Welcome into another YouTube live show. I am John Kurtz. Today, we're going to be talking about the Big 12 and the SEC. As you can see by the title of the video, the Big 12 is moving its Big 12 football media days to Las Vegas from Dallas. And this comes on the heels of the SEC moving into Dallas with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. It's going to be for at least the next 2 years out in Vegas. And look, I want to talk about what the Big 12 is pushing here. The reason, I almost called it an excuse, the reason that the Big 12 is giving for moving Big 12 media days, I would almost characterize it as potentially an excuse to allow Brett Yormark to do something that perhaps he had been wanting to do here. I'm not crazy about it. So I want to break down the situation that is going on there. But we also today, if you've been paying attention to the college sports world, got a huge ruling from, I would say an NCAA ruling. It's not an NCAA ruling. It's a ruling about the NCAA from a court. And for the next 14 days, it has pretty big ramifications across college basketball, college football, just NCAA athletics in general. And West Virginia is at the center of that. So we're going to talk about the Raekwon battle case and what is going down with the NCAA, what it means with the Big 12, and what it means just moving forward in general. I think coaches' lives just got a lot more hectic. Maybe not a lot. Coaches' lives just got more hectic. They have more to worry about now and more players to be concerned with on their roster. So it's just opened up a little bit more. These coaches that have a ton to do right now already have a little bit more on their plate because of that. We do have a Pac-2 update, and I actually get excited, everybody. I'm bringing it to you from our good buddy, John Canzano. I know how much everybody loves John Canzano after the saga this past summer with the Pac-12 gates, everything that happened between the two leagues, the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Well, now we have an update from him on what's going on with the Pac-2. They have blocked some funding going out to the 10 departing schools, which I do love. There's discussion around the Pac-12 network. And perhaps most interestingly to me is how much is Oregon State and Washington State, how much will they be able to make off of their television rights this year? Something that I have not seen a figure for until this. So I've got to give John Canzano credit for that. He definitely does have some good info there. And hey, TCU has hired a defensive coordinator. I actually really like this hire a lot. Something that could bring some juice to the Frogs as the Frogs try to get that defense shored up, figured out after a sub 500 season last year to back up the national championship game appearance. So that's a rundown of what I've got. But if you guys have been here before, you know that you can play a large role in the show and where things are going. You can do so by clicking the $sign below the chat box. That is how you submit your chat with a donation. It makes it a super chat. It will pin it in a separate column for me. About to hit the 100 people mark here in the chat right now. I won't be able to keep up with everything that is going on in the regular chat. So if you want to be a part of the show tonight, you click the $sign below the chat box in order to submit your chat there. And it will pin it in a separate column for me. It's a way to make your voice heard, control the content on the show, and support the work that I'm doing to bring you Big 12 content on a week in, week out basis. I much appreciate all of you guys who do that. Could not do it without your support. And genuinely appreciate everybody who does contribute. It's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you're not catching this live and you would like to contribute as well, you can definitely do that too. Totally free way to support the channel. It's just like the video. One click. That's all I'm asking people. Just one click. If you like the video, I would much appreciate that. That is a very easy way to support the channel, as is leaving a comment underneath the video in that comment section. Love me, hate me, agree, disagree, doing it during the show, after the show, all of that stuff helps as well. So I would very much appreciate you doing that also. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure that you subscribe. I think that is basically the laundry list of everything that I have to unload on you here before the show gets rolling. All right, we'll see how lively things get. We are now in it's a weird period where there's a ton going on with the transfer portal. For instance, right before I just hopped on here, I saw that Malik Murphy from Texas has opted to enter the portal, which does not surprise me at all. I would imagine that he's going to have a pretty solid list of suitors. Maybe Nebraska, since Nebraska just got spurned by Kyle McCord. But I don't know. Malik Murphy, that's an interesting one because I watched him play against K-State where he damn near gifted K-State the game. But he does have a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent there to work with, and there are some schools that now, as quarterbacks are starting to find homes in the portal, will definitely be in the market for somebody. So you have a lot of that. Coaches are doing a lot of recruiting right now. We do have basketball rolling, but I was about to say it feels like a somewhat quiet week. It has been a somewhat quiet week around the Big 12, and it's why we wind up leading with a story like this that on the surface you might say, like, man, I mean, who cares? Like, why does this matter? And for me personally, I do have a little bit of a stake in it. I will admit that. I mean, Dallas is drivable for me living in Kansas City. Las Vegas is certainly not drivable for me. So I really enjoyed being at Big 12 football media days last year. Highly doubt that's going to happen this year. I'm not a big Vegas guy anyway, and I'm just not going to be super motivated to make that sort of a trip unless somebody is going to front the money for a plane ticket out there and a hotel and all that. I highly doubt that's going to happen for me. But here is the Action Network's Brett McMurphy reporting. The Big 12 reportedly going to have a new home for its football media days in 2024 and 25. Brett McMurphy says Big 12 football media days is moving to Las Vegas because of scheduling conflicts at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Host sites being considered in Las Vegas are the Sphere, which, okay, that is interesting. Host sites being considered in Las Vegas are the Sphere, Allegiant Stadium, or an MGM property, sources said. Now, if I were a Vegas guy, I could certainly find myself being very excited by MGM property, but that really doesn't mean much to me. Allegiant Stadium is a cool looking stadium, and they do it right now at Jerry World, so that would seem to make some sense. The Sphere is like, I mean, look, that seems like just right up Brett Yormark's alley. Like, seeing that mentioned first here, I was like, it all clicked. I was like, oh, that makes so much sense that the Big 12 wants to put under Brett Yormark its media days at the Sphere to, I don't know, you'd be projecting like Big 12 logos on that thing. I don't know what all you would have there. Would you have different players on the outside of it? That might be a good thing to get rolling in the chat here tonight. Like, what do you think Brett Yormark would actually put on the outside of the Sphere if that's where Big 12 media days is actually going to be? Maybe just like Brett Yormark's face. Can we just get Brett Yormark's face on the Sphere so you can see that from all over the place? I was in Vegas actually a couple months ago. I'm trying to think. That was that early? It was like September. I guess I was in Vegas in September, and I did happen to see the Sphere. It is pretty crazy. It's quite a sight. It's a cool thing. It's a very popular thing right now. It's a little gimmicky. And I mean, look, if we're being honest, that fits a lot of what Brett Yormark's younger, hipper, cooler kind of mantra with the Big 12 seemingly is. So it does not totally shock me with that. Anyway, but the part that I don't love about this, so the SEC is set to host its football media days at the Omni Hotel in downtown Dallas from July 15th to 18th. Well, the MLB All-Star Game will be played at Globe Life Field on July 16th. So that is apparently, I guess, the reason, scheduling conflicts at AT&T Stadium. I guess that's what we're talking about there. Host sites, again, are going to be the Sphere, Allegiant Stadium, MGM property in Vegas. Understandably, I'm reading now from a Heartland College Sports article. Understandably, it may be hectic around Arlington with AT&T Stadium right down the street from Globe Life Field that week. However, the Big 12 now try to go head-to-head against SEC Media Days from Las Vegas? If not, why not just stay at AT&T and try for the week before or the week after? And then it closes by saying, at this point, it's just speculation until the Big 12 makes an official announcement. So, yeah, as far as I have seen, I have not seen an official announcement from the Big 12 yet, but it is something. I mean, look, Brett McMurphy is not often wrong about things like this. And that's the part that it points out, like, hey, you are about to go head-to-head against the SEC. If you're going to keep it at that same week just in Las Vegas, you will get not much attention. You would get far fewer reporters coming out there, at least like national reporters. I was at Big 12 Media Days this past year. There's a good throng of national reporters that were there. And I already saw like Shehan Jayaraja from CBS Sports, who I think is excellent and one of the best guys out there doing it right now. He said, well, my string of going to Big 12 Media Days is going to be snapped now with this. So you're going to lose some people. You're going to lose some people if you do decide to go head-to-head against the SEC. And if you're not, then like what was really the point of moving anyway? So either way, I just don't love the reasoning. And what it feels like to me, this is not an informed opinion really at all. This is just my speculation and take. I mean, it just feels to me like something that Brett Yormark would want to do. And this was like kind of an excuse, like, hey, there are some other things going on here, scheduling conflict at AT&T Stadium. Thought I heard someone else mention like soccer being a factor here. Maybe AT&T Stadium is hosting something there, but I don't. It feels to me like a convenient excuse for Brett Yormark to just get a chance to move something and do something, because he has not been able to move the championship game in football. He has not been able to move the basketball tournament for hoops. They're sticking in Kansas City and obviously Dallas through 2030. It's going to be that 2030, 2031 athletic year where both of those are signed up for. And I think that's the right move. I certainly don't want to surrender or acquiesce Dallas to the SEC now that they have Texas and Oklahoma. But that feels to me a little bit like what this move is. You know, in essence, I titled the video like, hey, is the SEC pushing the Big 12 around? I don't think that this is like a Brett Yormark being deferential to the SEC sort of a thing, but the optics of it do not feel great when it's like, hey, the SEC, which is traditionally doing their media days in Alabama, seemingly well off the beaten path, they're moving in now to Dallas because they just took the two teams that play in Dallas every single year from your conference, and they're going to try and encroach on your territory. Now, there's nothing that you can do to completely keep the SEC out of there. I understand. It's not like the Big 12 is going to be able to outdraw the SEC or out attention the SEC in any way, shape, or form. But I would still fight. I would still want to be fighting for every little sliver of attention and market share that I can get in Dallas if I were the Big 12. So I just don't love like voluntarily moving it out here to Las Vegas. And I think like we heard like Brett Yormark, we know he's a Northeast guy. I'm sure in his heart of hearts, he would love to get the Big 12 basketball tournament out to New York somewhere. It works too well in Kansas City. And I get really annoyed with the Twitter discourse about Vegas from the West Coast people, from the four corner schools that are coming in here. And the advantages of Vegas. Look, I'm sure it's great. And I'm sure if you're somebody that really is into the Vegas scene, it's awesome being able to walk out there, but it should be about the actual environment at the arena itself. And that is top notch in Kansas City. You won't get much better than that. So I'm already annoyed with some of that talk. And I'm annoyed with the fact that this, has been treated like a W for those schools. So I guess if it's Brett Yormark's way to just throw them a bone, I suppose I can sort of get behind that idea. Hey, you guys came here, even though, in a lot of ways we were saving you, tossing a life raft. You guys came to the Big 12. We'll throw you a bone with media days for a couple of years out there. Let your media be able to cover it all. Become more ingratiated in the conference. Maybe that is a part of the thinking. But I feel like with Yormark and everything we know about how Yormark operates, younger, hipper, cooler, seemingly wanting the basketball tournament back out east, being in the entertainment capital of the country, essentially in Las Vegas, seems like something that he would want to do and find excuses and reasons to be able to get it there. And if there was some kind of minor scheduling conflict, a lot of other stuff going on in Dallas, clearly the weekend that they would typically, or the week that they would typically have Big 12 media days, that feels to me like Yormark being like, you guys got to give me this. I can't take the championships out because they have good homes that are working really well right now. You got to let me have some little shiny new toy to mess around with here. So that to me is what this reeks of, and I just don't love it. Again, admitting some bias for sure. There is bias in that I have been to it many times in Dallas. Again, it is drivable. Saw some people arguing like, hey, if you're going to pick up like Southwest airfare from Kansas City to Las Vegas, really not going to be that much more expensive than the drive to Dallas. I don't know. I'd beg to differ a little bit. I don't think it makes a massive difference for a ton of the media that is covering the schools and being able to get there. I'm sure a good chunk of them, the majority of them, will be able to get there if they really need to. But yeah, I'm just a little irked by this one from Yormark. Look, as much as I love the guy, he certainly has not been perfect. The tiebreaker stuff at the end of the football season was kind of a joke. Not everything has been perfectly executed. I don't love this move. I also don't think it's some crazy misstep and something that is going to doom the conference or anything like that. But at a time when you got to be fighting for everything, man, we've been doing it on this channel now for over 2 years, like fighting for every scrap and shred of narrative and respectability. I just don't love being like, hey, SEC, you're coming in. Peace. We'll get out of your way. So I hope that there is a plan to eventually get back. I hope this is much more in the vein of just toss a bone to the four corner schools and then we'll be back. So anyway, I can already see McMuffin's comment that is coming up, and it pains me, McMuffin. Believe me, I will get to it here in just a moment. But I will mention again, as I'm about to get to Alan and McMuffin here in the super chats, if you want to be a part of the show tonight, you can do so by clicking the $ below the chat box. That will pin your super chat in a separate column for me and ensure that it gets read. We've got over 200 people in here now. Can't keep up with everything going on in the regular chat. So if you want to be on the show tonight, you can donate by clicking that $ below the chat box. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you're catching it after the fact, then you can leave a question or comment there too if you want it answered on a future show. And if you would like the video, I would much appreciate that. Completely free way to support the channel as well, or leave a comment underneath in the comment section. Alan is going to lead us off today. What's up, Alan? Alan says, John, if the NCAA basketball tournament started today, 3 to 4 of the 1 seeds would come from the 2024 Big 12. It will be harder to earn a high seed in the Big 12 tournament than the NCAA tournament. The SEC who? Oh, I like that, Alan. Alan's bringing some fire here. Alan's bringing some fire today. I like to see that out of you. I mean, you're right, dude. The Big 12 is insane right now. Obviously, there's Kansas. There is always going to be Kansas. Kansas is inevitable. But you have Houston. I mean, I'm looking at KenPom right now. Houston's number 1. Arizona's number 2. I believe Arizona is number 1 in the conventional polls here at the moment. I mean, Baylor is sitting there at number 7 in KenPom and unbeaten. It is a crazy, crazy league. A crazy good and crazy strong league, as we knew that it would be. And the SEC has been getting much better in basketball. Like, that is still a pretty good league. I'm looking at Tennessee, Auburn, and Alabama at 9, 10, 11. I guess we got 9, 10, 11 in KenPom. And not that KenPom is the be-all, end-all, but certainly what I trust most when it comes to basketball rankings. The SEC is not complete child's play, but it ain't the Big 12. It certainly ain't the Big 12. So, Alan, I like it. We're sitting here saying the SEC football-wise maybe throwing their weight around a little bit, and the optics of this don't look good at the Big 12, kind of retreating out of the foxhole in Dallas. I like throwing some basketball smack in there and relying on your strengths, man. We've known, like, that's what this league will have over everybody else. If there is one thing that it does have, you can debate the actual value of it, how much it really means, but they will have good hoops. They'll have basketball, and they definitely do right now. I'm very excited for conference play to start in hoops because, like, it's so hard with all the football stuff happening, especially lately the last couple of weeks for me with everything happening very, like, hyper locally at K-State. Very hard for me to keep up and watch much Big 12 basketball outside of my team. So conference play starts, you get in more of a rhythm, a little bit less football going on. It's just it's an easier thing to do. So I am here for that. Alan, I appreciate you weighing in as always, and I appreciate you bringing some smack right at the SEC. SEC fans in here, you want to fire back, you are more than welcome to, but Alan is bringing it strong. And now McMuffin's got to bring me down a little bit. McMuffin, you are correct, man. First of all, thank you for your support of the channel. McMuffin says, imagine being such a blowhard that you find a way to push Coach Tang out of his job. That takes high levels of idiocy. Figure it out, K-State, please. Dude, we are trying. We are trying. I literally think almost everybody outside of the president, Richard Linton, is trying right now, desperately. The guy continues to just be a jackass behind the scenes and make this situation worse and worse. And my hope has always been that at some point the lies that he is telling about Coach Tang, Gene Taylor, and he all being on the same page with the Naquan Tomlin situation, which is just patently absurd without even, you don't need sourcing on that. Now, I do have sourcing on that, but you don't need it. You don't need it. You can just look at the fact that they had a press release out there that said this will be the only comment from K-State or K-State athletics. And then the next day there was a video from Jerome Tang. And then the next day there was a letter from Richard Linton that went into more detail than he really should have. He put the university some liability with at risk a little bit with the statement that he put out there. It's an asinine thing to be telling people, but he's preying on people who just aren't paying enough attention to it. At some point, doing that and threatening jobs and using intimidation tactics and just being a general freaking hothead, it's going to catch up to him. I hope on everything I have that it's going to be before Jerome Tang and or Gene Taylor and or Chris Kleiman were to depart, because that is obviously your real concern here. And look, Jerome Tang is the best thing that has happened to K-State since Bill Snyder. And if he gets pushed out by that, I will probably go walk to my bathroom and throw up. That's probably what will happen. And I don't know. We've got to. I see someone else is asking me about it later on here in the chat here, so I will get to that super chat in just a moment. But that's kind of pulse check for me right now. Like on the public front, it seems like some things have kind of slowed down. I think there are some things in the works behind the scenes still. Like this certainly is not over. I did hear just a little bit from somebody too that made it seem like it's definitely not over from like a Richard Linton standpoint either. He's clearly a guy that's got an ego that's been bothered by everybody hating him throughout this whole process. And so that's not going to sit well or be a guy who's able to just like let stuff go, because he's still a pretty hated figure. And K-State does play a home basketball game on Sunday. I'll be in attendance. K-State plays Nebraska and what's going to be a sold out crowd. I will be very interested to see if the guy decides to show up. I will be very interested. He did not have a very good experience, it sounded like, at the Villanova game last week when the students were chanting, "We want Naquan," and they got on the video board somebody putting up free Naquan on their phone. So I'm hoping for some more shenanigans like that. I know some people, I've gotten it from some in my mentions, not a ton, but some saying like, hey, just let it die down. That's best for everybody. Why do we have to be divisive? Because dying down means he wins, and dying down means nothing's going to happen to him. And guys like Gene Taylor and Jerome Tang have to make decisions about whether or not they want to work under this jackass. And so that becomes an issue. That becomes a real issue for K-State. So McMuffin, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about it. I am feeling a bit defeated by it all, but hopefully it will work out in the end. That's about the best I can give you. Matthew's got a great take here and a great idea. I appreciate it, Matthew. Thank you for your support of the channel. Matthew says, put Media Day in Atlanta and strike back at the SEC. I'm here for it. I would love to go to Mercedes-Benz and hang out there. Atlanta's a cool city, man. I got to go there to watch K-State beat Kentucky in the Sweet 16 and then lose to Loyola in the Elite Eight. In 2018? Was that 2018 that happened? Had a blast in Atlanta that weekend. Very one of my better memories, I think, from my time on the K-State beat, covering it on a day in, day out basis. No better way to strike at the heart of the SEC than to go to Atlanta. Honestly, what would be funnier though, Matthew, is that if you went to like Birmingham, Alabama, like where the SEC usually has this, like, is it Birmingham? SEC Media Day. Birmingham, or do they do like Mobile or something? Hyatt Regency in Birmingham. Okay, let's get to the Hyatt Regency in Birmingham, set up shop, do Big 12 Media Day there. That would be the ultimate move. If I were the Big 12 commissioner, you'd find me doing things like that. I don't think Brett Yormark is a guy who's going to be much in the business of doing that, because you're not going to gain much market share or exposure or be younger, hipper, cooler by being in Birmingham, Alabama. No offense to the great people of Birmingham, Alabama, but that is just the reality. However, great place to have your head at, Matthew. Great place to have your head at. I'm liking it. BR James, what's up, BR James? What's the chance of Linton leaving before Tang? I just feel like it's impossible to say. I mean, I'll be honest, like, it feels like a tough putt. A dude like that's not backing down for sure. So if you're holding out some kind of hope for like a resignation or something like that, I don't think that is coming. And there just is, I don't know how you get, there was a Board of Regents meeting today. I know that he was there. I think that's probably a fairly common occurrence. I believe he had to present something today. Look, I didn't watch it. I'd heard some rumors that they were maybe going to talk about this a little bit. I know plenty of people in K-State circles have been writing letters there and that there is at least some level of awareness from the Board of Regents. But look, they just hired the guy less than a year ago. You would be asking the Board of Regents to be admitting a terrible mistake, which I think it was a terrible mistake. I'm shocked that this guy got hired, but he did, and you'd be asking them to really be turning their backs on a major decision that they made not that long ago. So that's why I say it feels like a tough putt. It feels like a tough putt, but I'm trying to hold out hope, man. I'm trying to hold out hope, because otherwise you're just going to be biting your nails all day. Like, would Gene Taylor just say, screw it and retire? Would there be another opportunity out there for him to leave? Obviously, he's very tied to Chris Kleiman, but I also believe now, Jerome Tang will be the guy with options that could leave instantly if he wanted to at the end of the season. Louisville continues to be just a dumpster fire. I just saw before I hopped on here, kid that they all said was transferring now is like, I don't know why there's that report out there. Louisville is just a complete tire fire. So they'll be in the market for Jerome Tang, I am quite sure. Looks like Michigan may have an opening. So he will have options, but he also, I think, is very, very close at this point with Gene Taylor, especially as they're having to kind of be forged through fire right now with the situation that they're dealing with the university president. So I guess that could be some optimism and hope if you're a K-State fan, that maybe that's brought them together. And generally you're going to be working. The university president should not be involved very often in athletics. Like, for the most part, you'd be dealing with Gene Taylor, the athletic director, if you are Jerome Tang, and maybe that's some hope, but I don't know, dude. Jerome Tang is the greatest leader I think I maybe have ever seen. True leader in every sense of the word. And a dude like that is going to smell out some fake leadership disguised as just a guy wanting to be a tyrant with a massive temper. And I just can't see that sitting well with him, that like he knows now that that's who he would be working for. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, BR. I wish I had some better news on that front. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see what continues to trickle out and come out. Every way that this has gone, like everything we've seen Richard Linton do along the way so far would indicate a guy that certainly is capable of really sabotaging and self-destructing. And, we've got until, I guess, April, late March, early April would be like your deadline for Tang and figuring it out before Tang. So we'll let it play out. We'll see what happens and go from there. But anyway, if you guys want to be a part of the show tonight, you can click the $sign below the chat box to load in a super chat. Submit your donation that way. It will pin it in a separate column for me. Make sure that it gets read on the show here tonight. If you could like the video, I would much appreciate that too. That is easy way to support the channel. It is totally free. You can also leave a comment in the comment section of the video, below the video, during or after the show. Agree or disagree. All of that is great. And you can donate as well on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4 if you are not catching this live. All right. So the news of the day in college athletics actually surrounds in part West Virginia and Raekwon Battle, who a guy that I saw play K-State in the NCAA tournament last year. So I've always had like a little bit more of an interest in this because I saw him play. I remember him getting tossed around just a bit with K-State when he hit the portal. I'm not sure that they were ever like super interested just because of like his skill set being, he's the scorer. Like that dude's just a scorer. And I'm not sure it was like exactly what K-State necessarily needed, but I was excited to watch him at West Virginia. And because he was a second transfer guy, started at Washington, went to Montana State, and now is going to be going to West Virginia. He did not get granted the right to play by the NCAA at West Virginia. And this has turned into a big deal, turned into a lawsuit. And boy, the NCAA just stays taking L's, man. They stay taking L's in court. We're just finding out. Look, we all knew this, but we're finding out the courts agree with almost everybody on like what the NCAA collegiate athletics model has been for decades. Not something that is really fair to the student athletes here. And we got another ruling in that vein. So I'm going to read to you here this story from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. A West Virginia judge has paved the way for college athletes to have more freedom in transferring schools. Judge John P. Bailey granted a 14-day temporary restraining order during a hearing in West Virginia District Court on Wednesday, giving college athletes who have transferred more than once immediate eligibility, at least for the next 2 weeks. The crazy part about this, for the next 2 weeks, they can all have immediate eligibility. says, and potentially charting a course for more lawsuits from transfers seeking eligibility. Yeah, if you're seeing this, like the problem the NCAA is having is they're just getting to a point where like they're going to have a hard time enforcing any of their rules because all these things are getting challenged in court and they're just losing. So here's another one. And the NCAA basically just threw up its hands and said like, fine, you got us. Because here's what the NCAA said in a statement today after the court's ruling. It says, quote, as a result of today's decision impacting Division I student athletes, the association will not enforce the year in residency requirement for multiple time transfers and will begin notifying member schools. So the year in residency requirement is the sit out a year if you're going to be transferring to a second school. Remember, it used to be that's how it was with any transfer. You'd have to sit out a year. Now it's if you are on your second transfer, you have to sit out a year. So one of the things that this immediately triggered to me is like it takes out the strategy. And I had kind of thought, sorry, I left the BR James. Just realized I left the BR James up here. BR getting some extra screen time. Schools like, I think a lot of Big 12 schools that are not going to be the big boys that can just go out and pay for literally anybody and take their pick of the litter in the portal. There was actually like a real advantage to taking a kid who had already transferred once, because you're saying like, or to take a transfer and then be like, look, you've transferred once. Now you're going to have to sit out a year if you're going to transfer somewhere else. So if you're getting a kid who like maybe you missed him out of high school, he goes to a different school, it doesn't work out, and then you get him on the rebound, that actually could work out better because now you would have him locked down to where if he's going to leave, he's going to have to sit out a year. So you could build a roster theoretically by getting a handful of kids like that where you'll get more out of them. Whereas if you got them out of high school, they could just leave pretty freely after one single year. This would change that. But I will mention here, and Dellinger mentions, it's not a permanent ruling, not a permanent change to the NCAA transfer policy. The court's ruling is only applicable for this 14-day period. The ruling does not forecast for future seasons. The biggest impact appears to be on active transfers for winter sports, who can now play over the next 2 weeks. So this 2-week thing, I mean, if you think like, hey, man, that sounds kind of messy. I mean, you're right. It does sound kind of messy, and it is kind of messy. Like, what do you do with that? So for 2 weeks, Raekwon Battle, these guys can play. What happens at the end of that? Seems like it's going to be moving in the direction of like they could extend it another 2 weeks, and then maybe at some point this becomes a permanent ruling. It does go on to say later in the article this would not be happening if the judge didn't feel like it was probably headed that way. But at least for right now, conceivably, it could just be like kind of a free-for-all for a couple of weeks here. And if you're a coach and you're like out on the road recruiting hard in the portal, and you thought you had your roster totally locked down, what happens if you got guys who are sitting there like, hey, man, I did just transfer here, but now I know that I could actually leave. Like maybe now I'm going to explore my options. There's probably more tampering going on now, which seems to be running pretty rampant anyway all the time. Maybe some more tampering now where people are going to be looking around like, hey, I hadn't even considered this because I couldn't do it before. Now I'm going to go test the waters a little bit. Let's see if I can put some feelers out there, have an agent try and put some feelers out there, figure out what I'm actually worth here. So it's just more roster management for coaches. More roster management for coaches. Now they get paid handsomely, and I'm not here to throw like the pity fest for coaches. I do have some level of like empathy for them. Like I understand what that's going to be for them. It is more work, but they are also paid increasingly more handsomely for all of this. But doesn't mean it's not work for them, and it doesn't mean that it's not just one other thing that they're going to have to worry about right now, because it absolutely is. So there's a hearing on December 27th, a preliminary injunction hearing, when the judge is expected to make a more permanent ruling in the case. So after this 2 weeks, the expectation, according to Dellinger, would be to get a more permanent ruling. He says the ruling at least temporarily strikes down the NCAA's policy around athletes transferring for a second time or more. Under current rules, athletes are allowed to transfer once and play immediately at their new school. However, those transferring again need a waiver from the NCAA to play immediately. Judge's ruling stops the NCAA from enforcing that year-in residence for at least the next 2 weeks. The ruling comes from a pair of lawsuits against the NCAA over transfer rules, one from West Virginia basketball player Raekwon Battle seeking eligibility, and the other from 7 different state attorney generals who want to see the organization's transfer policy eliminated. The 2 cases were consolidated, and a hearing was held Wednesday morning in the front of Bailey in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of West Virginia. So West Virginia having a major impact on the college athletics landscape here And like Raekwon Battle has been very public with all this. It seems like he was kind of pulling all the strings that he possibly could to try and make this happen. And going down the road of the lawsuit obviously was a smart way to go because it has now worked. It has definitely now worked. There was a coaching change, part of why he was arguing he should be able to transfer. And it felt very much like common sense would tell the NCAA, you should probably just let the kid play. But the NCAA has never had much common sense. It's very much always been, this by the book, you picture, I always picture the embodiment of the NCAA being Jeremy Piven's character in the movie Old School. For those of you guys that have seen that, it always seems like they've operated like that, and now it is catching up to them. Never wanting to operate with more common sense, never wanting to modernize. Now they're just losing everywhere and having to just throw their hands up and having to propose things like what Charlie Baker did that we talked about recently on the channel, which is just a completely new structure where you can pay the athletes basically directly through a trust fund. Anyway, Battle had his waiver to play at West Virginia denied earlier this year. Second-time transfer of Washington, Montana State, as I mentioned. A couple other athletes are mentioned. Jameel Reynolds, Cincinnati basketball player. So, hey, actually, I didn't even realize that. So we got another Big 12 tie-in here. Cincinnati basketball player Jameel Reynolds. Miami, Ohio quarterback Maddox Kopp. Kopp and Battle both left their second schools after the head coach departed for another job. So, yeah, coaching change being mentioned there. Again, the logic, look, if the coach can just up and leave, whenever the coach wants to just up and leave, it would stand to reason. Why? I mean, just let the kid leave. Let the kid leave and let the kid be able to play. Seems a little silly. What are we doing here? And the other part of the argument is that Raekwon Battle was saying that his NIL contract, it was going to be harder to make the money. He would not have made the money that he was really promised in going there because he wasn't going to be able to play. I mean, that part seems obvious. You're going to lose a lot of your marketability if you're sitting on the bench. So that is definitely something that they argued. And Dellinger says, in granting the temporary restraining order, the court found that there's a likelihood of success on the merit of the claims. This means the judge believes the state attorney generals will likely prevail on their claim that the NCAA's transfer waiver rules violate federal antitrust law, according to sports law attorney Mitt Winter. So, yeah, that's what we've got with this. The Big 12 kind of at the center of all this, with a West Virginia player and a Cincinnati player being hotly involved in this lawsuit. And a lot of reaction to this earlier today. Feels like just another element of this all being the Wild Wild West, making it even more the Wild Wild West for players being able to move. And look, it certainly keeps you on your toes. It certainly is going to make things more difficult, I think, in the short term for coaches here. And we'll see what happens permanently with all of this. I don't know that I would call this total bombshell, but at least for right now, it's a nice dub for Raekwon Battle. And I'm excited to watch him play at West Virginia. I'm happy for West Virginia fans, certainly, that this is going to work out right now. I thought I saw the total numbers around 100. Well, I think I have that actually here. It was going to be around 100 players that this would affect. Maybe I don't actually have it. I don't. I apologize. I thought I had that from another article there, but I do have this to give to you. This was from Jeff Goodman, obviously national college basketball reporter. He said in response to this, one athletic director texted him, "As usual, those of us who did the right thing are being punished and the a-holes are rewarded. This was all made so clear a year ago. It's a disgrace that these coaches just went forward and are now benefiting." And so the thing there is, some people backed off and didn't take the second-time transfers because they didn't think the waivers would clear, which they didn't, and they thought they'd just be stuck with somebody that couldn't play. But then some coaches took a chance, and now that's going to work out for them. Now, I would also say it's going to work out for them for half a season, but it is the more important half of the season. Conference play would be much more important to everybody here, so I'm sure the coaches are still generally happy that they would have taken those guys, and I can understand having a little bit of frustration there. But also I would say, look, the problem is athletic directors for years, presidents, everybody involved with the NCAA has never evolved with the times. So this is just how it works now. You're going to get taken to court for things and you're going to lose because people have had enough. They've realized that the courts are going to side with them, be like, hey, you guys are violating all sorts of antitrust stuff here with your whole model. So I would just say, like, I don't know. There's not much you can do about that. And people in your shoes, likely you at points in times, whoever you are, athletic director, have been a part of the problem that has led everybody to get to this situation. Now, I know another natural question that comes up with this, and some people have asked, is like, okay, if we're going to do this for 2 weeks, what happens after that? Like, can teams be punished? Because I saw like Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic had said, hey, there is a bylaw here that would seemingly make it look like the NCAA could retroactively punish schools who would play these guys. That was a part of the ruling too. That will not be allowed. You will not be punished for playing these guys now based on what is going on. That was knocked down in court too. Again, the NCAA stays taking L's, so it does not look like they would have any way to actually punish anybody for playing these guys now. So West Virginia should be cool, man. They should be cool to go ahead and move forward here with Raekwon Battle. But keep your eye on that. I don't know that it's going to affect a ton of other Big 12 teams here in the short term, but like I immediately started texting the old 3-Mod group chat, and I was like, hey, who does K-State have to be watching out for now that's a guy who's already transferred that we weren't worried about before that now maybe would have the option? And there were a couple of names that came up where you're like, all right, well, we'll monitor that situation. Shall monitor that situation. Nick, what's up, Nick? And hey, if you want to be a part of the show like Nick, click that $sign below the chat box to submit a super chat. It will attach your donation to your chat. Make sure that you get on. It will pin it in a separate column for me, and is a way to support the work that I'm doing to bring you this Big 12 conference realignment content on a week in, week out basis here on the channel. Couldn't do it without your support, and I genuinely appreciate all the guys who do this. Nick says, I love Coach Boynton. Great dude. And I would agree with that. I'm just going to start with that before we start going down the road of his merits as a coach. Having spoken to him a couple of times at Big 12 Media Days, one of my favorites. Great guy, very engaging, very fun. Just seemed like a very cool dude. I like him a lot. I love Coach Boynton. Great dude, but I'm afraid this season may do him in. Hoping he rights the ship, but it doesn't look good. Just beat Tulsa despite 24 turnovers. Whew. Sorry about the turmoil in Manhattan. This too shall pass. Yeah, thank you, Nick. Hopefully it will before the entire athletic department is imploded. But yes, it will in one way or another pass. Oklahoma State. I have not had a chance to watch Oklahoma State at all this year. Looks like it's popping up a 72-57 win over Tulsa. Boy, 4-5 losses to Abilene Christian, St. Bonaventure, Notre Dame. Boy, those games are both 2-point losses. Creighton, understandable. Southern Illinois, not great. Yeah, this has not been a good non-con. Understatement, but not been a good non-con at all for Oklahoma State. They're going to have Oral Roberts, who, look, I saw Oral Roberts take K-State to overtime just the other day, so watch out for that one. And then Wofford, South Carolina State, Chicago State. I mean, you anticipate that probably being 4 wins, and if you can get those 4 wins, you'd be at 8-5 going into conference play. But that resume is going to make it tough. And the bottom line for anybody in the Big 12 basically is if you win enough games in the conference, you'll probably be in. I don't know, that Oklahoma State non-con might be enough to make it just a little bit trickier for them there. And then let's bring up the year by year here for Oklahoma State. I mean, it feels like Mike Boynton has kind of been like teetering on this for a while. He's been doing just enough to keep going. He goes NIT, no tournament, round of 32. Then they have the year where they're screwed and ineligible. And then last year they go to the quarterfinals of the NIT with an 8-10 season. So it's been, the last 3, 11-7, 8-10, 8-10 in the Big 12, and a very tough Big 12. That is like, it's kind of plodding along and doing just enough. But eventually Oklahoma State, rightfully so, will get a little bit tired with those results of like flirting with it and being close to the tournament, but not quite enough to get in and do serious damage, make a second weekend, threaten for like the top 3 or 4 in the league, anything like that. Eventually those get stale, people get tired of it. And even if you are a good dude, you'll be gone. So yeah, the way this has started, if the season continues to play out like that, where you're going to be sub 500, I would guess, I don't know the details of Boynton's contract offhand. Maybe someone could help me out with that. But if it's not going to be crazy cost prohibitive, yeah, I could definitely see that being the end of Mike Boynton. And I would be sad to see him go, man. I would be sad to see him go. I really like him too. Matthew, what's up, Matthew? And thank you, by the way, Nick, for your support of the channel, my friend. Matthew, appreciate you as always. Matthew says NCAA making itself less and less relevant. so many arbitrary rulings and slow to adapt. Almost all teams have some beef with the NCAA. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're definitely less and less relevant for sure. And the more they take losses in court, the less relevant they become because they just become impotent. Like they can't rule with an iron fist anymore. They can't enforce a lot of these rules. They're just losing so much of the power that they used to hold over the student athletes. And, even when you think about like the IARP ruling and the Kansas thing like that, I mean, they made such a big deal out of all that stuff with college basketball and the scandal 5-6 years ago. And they haven't had much in the way of, much teeth on that. The way that's come down, it's like just everything's moving in that direction of the NCAA becoming more of a joke. It's just things that have caught up to them over time. If they would have adapted to a more modernized model sooner, we probably wouldn't have gotten to this point. But like you say, Matthew, everybody has some level of beef. And when everybody has some level of beef, you're going to start getting taken to court. And it got to the point where everybody just said, look, we're not going to take this anymore. And now they're having all sorts of problems all over the place. And it's leading them to finally have to be like, all right, here's our president with a new revolutionary potential solution for everybody to operate under this new tier where you're going to pay kids out of a trust fund, all this stuff. But it didn't have to be that way. Like we could have gotten there in a much more slow, controlled, gradual way where it wouldn't have been this jarring shift and change for everybody. But too many people resisted that. And by the way, that's not just the NCAA. Like I would call out some of the fans too. I mean, there are a lot of fans that have been stuck in their old school ways there and not wanting the student athletes to have all those freedoms. And hey, it should just be about the education, not paying attention to the massive TV contracts that are coming out, how much money is being made by literally everybody except the kids, all these things. If we could have had more common sense along the way, we would not be running into stuff like this. And coaches' lives there would have been more for them to worry about, but it would have been in a much more gradual pace instead of just being thrown that stuff on the fly and forcing everybody to adapt. So anyway, that's the NCAA story with Raekwon Battle. And I certainly do appreciate your contribution there, Matthew. If anybody else has anything, we're getting down to the end here, 5 to 10 minute warning. Some buzzer beaters, perhaps here. You can click the $sign below the chat box to submit your super chat. It will pin it in a separate column for me and guarantees that it gets read here on the show. I do want to, before I get out of here, well, we've got the Pac-2 stuff, and I've also got TCU's defensive coordinator hire, which I wanted to talk about because I actually liked this, and it seemed like I saw, I don't know, TCU fans, maybe I'm totally off. It seemed like I saw a little bit of debate back and forth on this one. I know when a head coach gets fired, it's very easy to be like, hey, I don't want this bum who just got fired to come in here. But like, I don't know. Andy Avalos looks like he has a really good resume as a defensive coordinator. I mean, he's got more than a decade of experience. Sacramento State briefly as the head coach. He spent 7 years at Boise State as an assistant head coach. At Boise State, his first year as defensive coordinator, they had a top 3 scoring defense in the Mountain West. His second year, they led the Mountain West in scoring defense and rushing defense. They led the Mountain West in sacks in his third year and were tops in almost every single category. He goes to Oregon, and things were very good. Look, Oregon was a pretty elite defense with him. They finished 9th in scoring defense, 13th nationally. Kayvon Thibodeau had an incredible year, turned him into a first-round draft pick there. Led the Pac-12 in interceptions, sacks. And even at Boise State as a head coach, like the defense wasn't really the problem. They went from 52nd in scoring defense nationally to 12th in their first year. They only gave up 19 points a game. 2022, they were the 15th ranked scoring defense in the country. Now, they've definitely had some problems this year. But for the most part, his resume as a defensive guy has been very good. So I don't know. I'd be looking at that like, this is defensive coordinator is what we hired him for. He's not being Sonny Dykes. We hired him to run the defense. And this seems like a guy that can definitely run a defense. So I don't know. I could be completely just gauging this off of a couple of random tweets that I saw, but it seemed like there was a little bit of back and forth on that. It seems like a pretty good hire from Sonny Dykes to me for TCU. Just a quick little Horned Frogs take there for you. As we get to Chase. What's up, Chase? Chase, thank you for being here, my friend. Appreciate you and your support of the channel. Chase says, watch the Miracle in Manhattan doc today. Lots of parallels between Lance Lippold and early Snyder. Can't wait for next year's showdown, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Well, I appreciate your approach to that, and I love the fact that you watch the Miracle in Manhattan. I would definitely suggest people pop onto YouTube and watch the Miracle in Manhattan documentary if you want to see how crazy bad it was when Bill Snyder took over and the unbelievable work that he did to get that program turned around. Sports Illustrated famously literally wrote an article about it in 1988, Futility U, what they called K-State, worst college football program in America. All sorts of horror stories about how bad it was. And Snyder, within 5 years, had them in a bowl game. Within 10 years, had them an eyelash away from a national championship and ranked number one in the country. There certainly are some parallels. There certainly are. Lippold took over a really bad situation. I would still say K-State's, I think, was probably a little worse, but Lippold was definitely in a hole. I also think with the transfer portal and some of the rules today, it is perhaps a little bit easier in some ways to rebuild if you are a good coach. But look, Lippold's done an excellent job. And I appreciate the fact, Chase, that you said parallels between Lance Lippold and early Snyder, because, obviously like the crazy super fans are going to get off, and I've seen plenty of it. Like, oh, Lance Lippold better than Bill Snyder, all this stuff. Look, man, Bill Snyder won 11 games 7 times. He had 8 double-digit win seasons. Lance Lippold won 8 games, and that's a really nice season. He has not touched, what Bill Snyder did. Bill Snyder won 11 games 6 times in 7 years at one point at the peak of his powers. So, but yeah, it's hard not to say there are a lot of similarities there, even down to the facilities. That was a huge part of Snyder's early years in Manhattan, was forcing the university and the athletic department to build much better facilities, to the point where he wrote like a $500,000 check himself, or at least put that on the table. I can't remember if that's actually in, I believe, the Miracle in Manhattan doc. I can't remember if that actually got like cashed and his money got pumped in there, or if they told him like, hey, no, you can't do that. But that was the level of commitment that he had to that he was going to write a check himself to help some of those facilities get going. So yeah, I can't argue with it, Chase. Look, Lippold's a stud. He's a great coach. Andy Kotelnicki is definitely a loss, but I don't think it's going to create like some kind of massive drop off there. Now, we're talking about coordinator hires like Jeff Grimes. I think you could debate that one more than Avalos with Grimes' track record, but there is definitely some good there, and the guy's been a Broyles Award finalist before, so there is still some good there too. Anyway, Chase, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for weighing in there. I do agree with that take. I certainly do. And I mentioned the part about the facilities because Kansas now has started knocking down Memorial Stadium, the booth. They have started all the renovation stuff there. You can watch it live on a camera. I just saw like some screenshots of it on Twitter earlier today of it being torn down. So Lippold has really pushed Kansas to do that, which has been something that's been much, much, much needed there for a long time, and appears to be headed very much in the right direction. Daniel, what's up, Daniel? Appreciate you being here. Cat fan in Huskerland, a.k.a. Daniel Osborne. Daniel says, what are the Cats' chances against Nebraska Sunday? Have fun at the game. Go Cats. Thank you. I think they should be fine. Nebraska had a nice start this year. The thing that is going to be jarring when, you look at their resume is that they got just decleated by Creighton, 89-60. And I believe that was at Pinnacle Bank, their home arena. So they start 7-0, but it's like, the best win in there is, I don't know, Oregon State. It's like Stony Brook, Rider, Florida A&M, Lindenwood, Duquesne, Fullerton. Nobody really that good. They did beat Michigan State, but Michigan State has been a team that's really struggling. Michigan State's 4-5 right now. So it's hard to know how much to actually put into that. But look, I think Nebraska is solid. They are, I believe last I saw, they were like 60th in KenPom. Nebraska's 59th. They have moved up to 59 in KenPom. So as far as K-State's non-con goes, it'll be one of the top 3 or 4 teams that they've played. But you put K-State at home against a team that I do think Nebraska is very, very beatable. And you put K-State at home in what's going to be a pretty raucous crowd, because like that's a name, even though Nebraska basketball is not really sexy, just getting a chance to play Nebraska again is something that gets the fans' attention, and they will get out there. So it's going to be a tough environment for Nebraska to play in. So I think K-State will generally be fine there, Daniel. I think they will be just fine. And I know being a Cat fan in Husker land, that definitely means something to you, that you want those bragging rights and you want to be able to win the game. I think K-State shouldn't have much of a problem. And I mean, I was just impressed as hell with them on Saturday at LSU, because LSU's not a great team, but to win by 15 on the road when you have all the distractions swirling around from that week. And I would tell you, I think there were distractions that have not even been reported that we didn't hear about with the team that were pretty wild up until the late stages of that, and then playing that game in Baton Rouge. That's crazy impressive. Crazy impressive. They seem to be getting better. Kaluma really coming into his own, Big 12 Player of the Week, National Player of the Week to some. Lot to like there about what's going on with the Cats. So I appreciate the well wishes, Daniel, and we'll get you a win. We'll get you a win over the Huskers. We definitely should. Calico, what's up, Calico? Hi, John. Any news, good or bad, on the basketball front for our Cats? I just hopped on and was looking for hopefully good news, but any news will work. I mean, football news has been better. I know you asked about basketball, but football got the number 2 offensive tackle in the portal committed within the last 48 hours. That's very good news. You also got a 4-star high school wide receiver committed. That's very good news. And today we also found out, it looks like Blake Barnett, who was the high school quarterback recruit that K-State had in this class, who's flirting with 4-star status. He more or less reaffirmed his commitment publicly on Twitter after a 2-hour in-home visit with Taylor Bratt. So that all seems very good. And this, of course, is after Colin Klein left, who was the main guy who recruited him. This is a kid from Colorado. Colin Klein's from Colorado. Lots of reason to think that he maybe wouldn't have been solid in the face of that, but it looks like he is. So good news on the football front. That's what I'm going to lead with, Calico, because like basketball-wise, I mean, look, I think the team's starting to come together and play better, and I feel much more optimistic about where this season could be going. I'm happy that Naquan Tomlin wound up at Memphis. It was not a place within the conference, but I don't have any like real Richard Linton news other than, I mean, the thing I said earlier is that he was at the Board of Regents meeting today. I had been told that there maybe was going to be some discussion about this. I have no idea if that actually happened. I think Linton was presenting something, so it was, he was going to be there anyway at this. Behind the scenes, I just hear that he continues to not let this go and continues to still be very bothered by everybody having it out for him. And I got news for him. That ain't changing anytime soon. So that's really the hope I can give you, Calico, is that hopefully somebody that's proven to be just a total crazy lunatic hothead would make another mistake here at some point that's going to get him in trouble. But I don't know. Hopefully that obliges and suffices, Calico, but that's all I got for right now, my friend. Thank you for being here, though. Much appreciate you popping in here as always. And Daniel, Cat fan in Huskerland, a.k.a. Daniel Osborne, says, I don't need to see the miracle in Manhattan. I was there. Love it. Started in 1989, Bill Snyder's first year, which was the year that I was born. So I coincide with the Bill Snyder era at K-State. There's got to be some beautiful symmetry in that somewhere, right? I started going to games when I was a baby, so I was going to games in the very, very early 90s there. So I was technically kind of a part of it, but by the time I was conscious and alive, like Michael Bishop was running around and K-State was ranked number 1 in the country. So I got it pretty good. As a kid there, growing up with K-State football like that. But yeah, so honestly, jealous in some ways, Daniel. I wish I could have been more of like an adult to really witness that and see what it was like and just experience the totality of it. So glad that you did, my friend. Glad that you got to. All right, guys, I think that's going to about do it for me here. I can put together these Pac-12 updates. I keep saying Pac-12, man. Really, it's Pac-2 updates. I can put together some Pac-2 updates in a separate video this week. I think that will probably be my plan here. And some of that is because, like, just performance-wise, you guys can let me know if you're, like, really hyper-focused on that. Performance-wise, it seems like the interest has dwindled a little bit with some of the Pac-2 stuff. But I do intend this to be a conference realignment-based channel. And being that is some realignment-adjacent news, I will definitely try to get it out there to you. Please spread the word to all your friends and family on social media, whether it's Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, wherever you're at. Let them know about this community that we have. Let's continue to build this thing. Word of mouth, too, works great. If you have fans of your team, fans of the league, fans of conference realignment, whoever you think might be interested, please do spread the word. If you could like the video on the way out, I would much appreciate that. That always really helps. Leave a comment underneath the video in the comment section. Also always really helps. Very, very easy way to support the channel. Even if you hate me, you want to tell me you totally disagree, that is perfectly fine. Whatever you've got in there helps me with that YouTube algorithm. And make sure you subscribe and continue to catch these live shows. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I will talk to you guys all soon. Take care.